All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Google Shopping Hangout on Air. Today, we're going to go over new shipping features in the Google Merchant Center. So, as a high level, we launched some new shipping settings in your Merchant Center, and I'm going to walk you through those. If you have questions while I go through this presentation, there's a QA app where you can ask questions, or you can leave a comment on the page, and we'll look for those questions in the comments. All right, so at a very high level, what's changed with the shipping settings in Merchant Center? So first of all, okay, it appears that I was muted, so let me jump back and start over here. All right, so as I was saying, welcome to the Google Shopping Hangout. Today we're going to go through the Merchant Center shipping features. I'm going to take you through what's changed and some of the new features that we launched. We have a QA app where you can ask questions as I go through, and at the end, we'll try to answer some of those questions. You can also ask your questions just by leaving comments on the page. So, at a very high level, what's changed? As I just mentioned, we have new shipping setting options in Google Merchant Center accounts. We also changed the formatting for shipping and tax attributes. So I'll quickly walk you through those so you can see the new format. But just to call it out now, the old format still works, so you don't need to make any changes if you don't want to. And then we also introduced a new attribute called shipping label that should allow you to group products and apply shipping rates to these specific products, which hopefully will make it easier for you to specify accurate shipping in your Merchant Center account. And then a quick call out for those of you in North America, which should be most of you. We didn't do any changes to the account level tax settings, so those will stay the same. And as a reminder, so all previous shipping configurations are completely backwards compatible. So as I mentioned just a second ago, we changed the formatting of the shipping and tax attributes, but the old formats still work, as well as any previous account settings you had at the account level in your Merchant Center account. Those are also backwards compatible. So if you were submitting accurate shipping already, you don't need to make any changes. Everything is backwards compatible. So let's quickly walk through the new shipping setting options that are available in Merchant Center. So we have new account level features that provide more granular shipping models. We have an expanded list of shipping models, including more robust rate tables. So now rate tables are multidimensional, so they allow you to specify even more granular your shipping rates. And we also have configurable rules, which really let you get very granular in how you're expressing your shipping rates. Those of you that have set up shopping campaigns the UI for the configurable rules will be very familiar to you because it uses some of the same elements as shopping campaigns. We've also introduced the idea of multiple shipping methods, so there's no longer a need to specify a default shipping method. You can set up different methods, and we'll calculate the lowest rate and show that to the user. So, for example, if you set up maybe a high-level flat rate for all of your products, but then you set up a specific carrier-calculated rate for some of your products, we'll calculate which is the lowest of those two methods, and we'll show that to the users who are searching on Google Shopping. So we've also introduced a lot more granular location settings so that you can actually specify at a more granular level how you're going to ship to specific areas of your target country. These include countries, states, cities, and postal codes. We've also now allowed merchants to say, I don't ship to a specific region of a country. So previously you sort of had to set a default for an entire target country. We've now made it easier for merchants to say, I actually don't ship to this part of this target country. So let's quickly look at what are the available shipping methods that we have in Google Merchant Center. So there's 4 shipping methods that you can choose to specify your shipping rates. The first one is single rate, and so this is one that actually existed before. It was called flat rate previously, and there's no change to this method. This is the most simple method to set up, and we'll dive into this one in a minute, so I won't go into more details on it right now. Rate table, this one also existed previously, but we've updated it. This covers the most common shipping rates for merchants, and we believe that most companies will be able to use this feature. Carrier calculated rates. This one's currently available in the US only. We had this one previously as well, and there's been no change to this. So any carriers that are using, or any merchants that are using supported carriers can use this method to specify their shipping rates. And finally, rules. This is the one that's more complex and allows very granular shipping rates. This is for merchants that maybe have very unique shipping settings or need to specify specific shipping rates for certain areas of a country or target country. Let's dive into all of these and get a little more information on each one. So as I was mentioning, single rate is the most simple method, and this is actually a great method for anybody that's using free shipping. So this allows you to basically set a flat rate across all of your items. You can do it as a flat rate or as a percentage of the price of an item. So you would just tell us the amount in USD or your target country, the rate that it costs to ship an item, and this would be applied to all of the products in your data feed, all the products in your account. This is obviously the easiest one to set up. And again, if you offer free shipping on all of your products, then you can come right in here, enter a rate of 0, and that will show free shipping for all of your products. So a little bit more complex, the next one is the rate table. So this one allows you, as I mentioned, allows you to specify shipping rates on multiple dimensions. So in the example that we're looking at here, you can see that this merchant is setting up their shipping rates based on product price and then the ship to location. So in this example, you can see for the prices 0 to 50 to New York, it's $13.99, and to San Francisco, California, it's $7.99. And then all other prices to both those locations is free. So you can define your tables by 2 of the following: price, weight, destination, or shipping label. And I'll go into shipping label a bit more later in this hangout. So we recommend this one if your shipping rates are dependent on 2 of these variables. This is probably the easiest way for you to set up your shipping rates. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're using the weight option for this table, you actually have to provide shipping weight in your data feed so we know how much the product weighs so that we can actually accurately group the product into the right bucket. So the updated functionality here is that the table can be 2-dimensional. So before it was just sort of a flat list where you could just specify various price buckets, and so now we've added multiple dimensions to this rate table. We've also added some more granular ship to locations, so state, city, and zip code, and as well as shipping label. So looking at the third option, we have carrier calculated. And so this is for, as I mentioned, this is for all merchants who use existing supported carriers. And so the current supported carriers are UPS, FedEx, and USPS. So you can select your carrier and then select your service and then your ship origin. If you have slightly different rates than what the carriers calculate, you can also adjust the carrier calculated rate by a flat dollar amount or by a percentage. This supports negative values so that you can actually say, I charge less than what the carriers calculate by $2. You can add a negative value of negative $2 in there. Or I charge, I charge 5% less, and you can add a negative value. This one also requires that you include shipping weight in your data feed so that we can calculate these shipping rates accurately. So this is no change from the existing functionality. So this works exactly the same as it had previously. And this is currently only available in the US, so for US targeted data feeds at the moment. So this is we're looking now at the fourth method. This is the final method, rules. So this is the one that I've been saying is more granular. And you can see in the screenshot, I mentioned earlier that this was very similar to how shopping campaigns look. So if you're familiar with shopping campaigns, you can see that it is a similar experience where you build a tree and you start to, at a very granular level, start to say how you charge shipping for specific items. You can subdivide this tree based on product price, product weights, again assuming that you're providing the shipping weight in your data feed, the shipping label, or the destination. You can also refer to existing methods that you've already set up. So in a second here I'm going to cover the shared library, but this is using a feature called the shared library. So in this example, if you can see on the screenshot, for everything in the eastern states for $0 to $100, this shipping rule is actually referencing an existing carrier calculated rate. And above that, you can see for everything else in New York, this rule is actually referencing an existing rate table. So what this allows you to do is create various shipping methods and store them in your shared library, and then reference them in your shipping rules for specific products that you've broken out in your tree. And we're going to go through some examples that maybe will make this a little bit more clear if that's not immediately clear to you. And as I've mentioned repeatedly, the rules option provides the greatest flexibility for shipping rate calculations. So as I mentioned in the last slide, we introduced a feature called the shared library. And the shared library is basically a place to store and save existing shipping methods. And why would you do that? Well, one example I just showed you was that you can reference those shipping methods from your rules. So if you have a small group of products, or even not a small group, but if you have a group of products that uses carrier calculated rates, you can, when you're building out your shipping rules in the rules method, you can reference that a saved carrier calculated method from your shared library for those specific products. So you can share rate table, or you can save and share rate tables, and you can save and share carrier calculated rates in your shared library. The other thing the shared library allows you to do is create location groups. So location groups are basically what the name sounds like. It's a grouping of locations into one group that you can then reference within your rules. So for example, if you have, let's say that all of your products that ship to the West Coast, to 10 specific states, all have the same rate, you could actually group those states into one location group and then just reference that location group when setting up your rates, either in rules, or you can actually do it at the feed level too. So you can reference location groups from within your data feed using the shipping attribute. And we'll look at that a little bit more in a second here. So as I mentioned, there is new attribute formatting. And again, just to reiterate, the existing format works, so you don't need to change your existing formatting if you're providing the shipping or tax attributes. But we've introduced a new formatting that merchants may choose to use, or new merchants can use when they're creating their data feeds. So what's changed? Now, so in the past, we required, when you gave us the shipping attribute in the past, we required that you gave 4 sub-attributes. Now we allow you to tell us what sub-attributes you're going to provide. So we always require price, because that's the shipping rate, but you can tell us, hey, I'm going to give you country, postal code, and price. Hey, I'm just going to give you price. I'm going to give you country, location, group name, or price. So you basically tell us in the attribute name what values to expect, what sub attributes to expect in the values. So if we look at this first example, we're looking at here, this is the name of the attribute is shipping, parentheses, country, colon, postal code, colon, price, parentheses. So that would be the name that you would put at the top of your data feed file if you're using a TXT spreadsheet file. This would be what would be in the top row, and then below in the values you would provide corresponding values for the attribute name. So in this example here we have US, then the zip code 80302, and then the price. And then in the next example, to sort of show how you could vary it, you can say, actually, I'm just going to tell you the price. So then you would do shipping, parentheses, price, and then close the parentheses. And then in your value, you would just actually give us the shipping rate. The same works for the tax. So in the tax example, you can see the merchant's told us he's going to give country, postal code, and then rate. And so in his values, he'll have to provide country, postal code, and rate. So this should allow merchants to have more control over how they're submitting their shipping attribute, and hopefully it makes it easier for merchants to format their shipping attribute. I know some merchants have found it a little bit confusing with the old shipping attribute that you had to give those 4 values, those 4 sub-attributes, and if you weren't, you had to give us these additional colons, which was a little bit confusing. So hopefully this makes it more clear. But just one last time, if you're already submitting the shipping attribute or tax attribute formatted in the old way, you can leave it that way. You don't need to change it. So I mentioned earlier that we introduced a new attribute, the shipping label, and this basically allows you to assign specific labels to products, custom labels to specific products in your data feed. It's very similar to custom labels for shopping campaigns. It's basically a grouping attribute. It allows you to group products together that you can then assign specific shipping rates for. So, in this example here, we're looking at possibly you have perishable items that have different shipping rates, or you have bulky items that have different shipping rates, or you maybe have a couple items that are going to be promotional that you have specific shipping rates for. So this basically allows you to add that shipping label to your data feed, and then group these products together, and then you can specify shipping rates for these products at the account level, either in a rate table or in shipping rules. So let's walk through some scenarios that will hopefully make it a little more clear on how you can use all these features. So the first scenario is a pretty straightforward example. So the merchant says, I offer free shipping on everything. So in this example, which I actually mentioned previously, they could use the single rate option, the single rate method. So they would create a single rate method and then enter a value of 0 for all their products. This will then obviously show free shipping for all of their products in the target country. So let's look at the next scenario. So the merchant says, I only ship to New York State, and I specify my shipping rates by weight and zip code. So in this example, the merchant would use a rate table to specify his shipping rate. He would create a rate table with all the New York zip codes that he cared about in the rows going down, and then he would specify the weight in the columns. He would need to make sure the weight is in his data feed, as I've mentioned, and then he would specify the shipping rates for the zip code weight combinations. By only including the New York zip codes, he's indicated that he doesn't ship anywhere else. So that's all he needs to do. So he basically enters in all the zip codes that he cares about, specifies the weight buckets that he cares about, and then enters in the rates for those weight buckets. By not specifying shipping for anywhere else, he's told us that he only ships to New York. One caveat here is that if a merchant does this, this tells us where to show the shipping rates, but they should also be sure to set up their geo-targeting in their shopping campaign to make sure that they're only serving items to where they ship to. Okay, so the scenarios are getting a little more complex. Let's look at this one here. So the merchant says, I have 2 warehouses in different parts of the country. One uses FedEx and the other UPS. For most products, these 2 warehouses split the country, but some products only ship from one warehouse or the other. All right, so this is a fairly complex scenario. Let me see if I can walk you through it so that it makes sense how a merchant could set this up. So the screenshot over here, you can kind of follow along looking at the screenshot as I walk you through it. So the solution here would be that the merchant's going to use rules. He's also going to need to use shipping labels. He'll use location groups to sort of group together where the warehouse is shipped to. And then he'll do carrier calculated rates because the merchant said that he ships by UPS and by FedEx. So first, the merchant would create and save 2 carrier calculated rates for each warehouse in the shared library. So this is using that shared library that I mentioned previously. So they would create one for FedEx and one for UPS for each specific warehouse that they ship from. Then they would create location groups of the granularity that they need for where those warehouses ship to. So if you remember in the example, the merchant said they roughly, one warehouse covers one part of the country and the other warehouse covers the other part of the country. So they would group whether it's at the state level or at the zip code level or at the city level, they would sort of break out where each warehouse ships to and make those into each 2 location groups for each, 1 location group for each warehouse, so 2 location groups in total. Then they would use the shipping label to mark or to group those items that ship only from a specific warehouse. So warehouse A always ships these specific shoes, and they'll never ship from the other warehouse. So those shoes would then get a label that says warehouse A, so that merchant can then in the rules apply shipping rates for those shoes. Now they would create a rules shipping method in the rules tree. First, they would subdivide by those labels that they created for products that ship from specific warehouses and assign the correct warehouse carrier calculated rate to those labels. So that's this green over here. So the labels are ships east warehouse and ships west warehouse. And the merchants applied the relevant carrier calculated rates in the yellow boxes, the first yellow boxes here on the right. So carrier rates east warehouse and carrier rates west coast warehouse. So again, these are coming from in the yellow box here, these first 2, these are coming from the shared library. So he's already set these up, and he's applying those to those specific labels that he's set in his data feed. Next, they would subdivide everything else in their data feed based on the location groups that they created. So that's the orange here. So in this example, I've said that the merchant's doing it by states. So he's grouped all the eastern states and all the western states into their own location groups. And then he's applying the carrier calculated rate for those that he's already set up in a shared library to those specific location groups to model the to apply the rates from the carrier calculated rates. So I'll sit there for 1 second so you can take a look at that, and then again we are accepting questions. So if there's any questions about this, because that is a slightly complex scenario, go ahead and put them in the QA app. And I will jump on to the next scenario. So this one is, I use carrier calculated rates but charge a surcharge in New York City and I cap costs at $200. So basically the merchant's saying everywhere in the US he uses carrier calculated rates, but it's a little more expensive when he ships to New York City, but he never charges above $200 for any shipping. So how would a merchant set up this? So again, this would be another example where the merchant could use rules with carrier calculated rates from the shared library, and then he would set up a single flat rate. So the merchant could set up 2 carrier calculated rules and save them to the shared library. One carrier calculated rule would just be the default rates that he charges to most of the US, and the second one could have a surcharge or a percentage increase or a flat dollar amount increase for the New York City shipping rates. And then he would create rules, a rule shipping method, and subdivide by city. He would pull out New York and choose the carrier calculated rate with the surcharge from the shared library. But if you remember, the merchant said, "But I never charge above $200." So how would we do that? We would set a single rate method of $200 across all the items in the feed. So this would be that first method we looked at, the simple method. So he would just set a single rate of $200 for all of his products. And since we always show the lowest price, this would be used if the carrier calculated rate went above $200. So basically, this single rate would sort of kick in if carrier calculated rates ever went above $200. And our final example here, a merchant says, "I have a flat shipping rate as a percentage of cart price for up to $50. For cart prices more than $50, I offer free shipping. Most shoppers hit the $50, so I want to make sure my items show free shipping." Okay. So the first thing to call out here is the merchant was focused on the cart price. But however, in Google Shopping, we only display shipping prices based on the item price. So the goal here would be to actually set up the shipping rates for the specific products, ignoring what it would, or not focusing on what the cart price is. Again, because Google Shopping is focused on only showing shipping rates for specific products, we're not focused on getting shipping rates for the cart prices. So the merchant could do this scenario using rules. So another example of using rules. So he could create a rules method and divide by product price. And so he would break out $0 to $50 and everything else. And so for $0 to $50, he would enter the shipping rate as a percentage of the product price, and for everything else, he would enter a 0 for the rate amount. So basically, this is modeling exactly the scenario he mentioned. So from 0 to 50, we're going to charge 15% of the product price, and then everything else will be free shipping. Everything above $50 will be free shipping. All right, so as a recap, what's changed? So there's new shipping settings in your Merchant Center account. These can be found in Google Merchant Center, so google.com/merchants. Expand the Settings tab, and you'll see a shipping section. Click that link, and you'll see a big red plus box to start creating new shipping methods. We have the shared library for multiple shipping methods. We have new and updated attribute formatting, or updated attribute formatting for the shipping and tax attributes, and a new shipping label attribute that allows merchants to group products and then use those groupings to apply specific rates to those products. So I'll take a moment here. I'll look through the questions, and then I will try to answer any of the questions that came in. And again, you can submit questions in the QA app in the Hangout, or you can add them as a comment to the events page. Okay, so either this was it was either too complex and people are digesting what I said, or everybody understood what I went through. There's one question that's actually very specific to their shipping settings. So I think that this is, and it's from Carolyn. I would recommend Carolyn actually call our support line, and it can be found in the Google Merchant Center Help Center to get in touch with our support team, because this is, it's very specific, and we'd want to kind of walk her through how to set up her shipping. It may be, without knowing more details, though, the question is, I have multiple warehouses that ship to multiple destinations. How do I set up shipping method with this type of configuration? In addition, 50% of the products are shipped via small parcels, and 50% are shipped via LTL. How do I set this up? And it could be that it's very similar to this scenario I walked through here, using shipping labels for the specific products that ship via LTL and the small parcels, and sort of breaking out which products ship from which warehouse. So basically using a rules method. But without knowing the specifics, I wouldn't want to go into too much detail on how she could accomplish this. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to our support team and sort of walking through this with them to see if they can kind of help you figure out the best way to specify this. And since I don't see any other questions, I think I'm going to go ahead and say thank you all for attending. If you do have additional questions, you can reach out to our support team through our help center, and have a great shopping season. I don't know how it